Hello, how are you today? Hey, thanks for tuning in. So today's topic is going to be flood insurance. As most of you know, I live and I sell real estate in Pinellas County, Florida. And Pinellas County is located just across the bridge from Tampa Bay. Some of the cities within Pinellas County are Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Seminole, Pinellas Park, Madeira Beach, Bel Air Bluffs, Bel Air, Reddington Shores, Treasure Island, Palm Harbor, Crystal Island, all of those. So lots of little areas in Pinellas County. So if you're looking to move here, purchase real estate, investment, what have you, you're going to want to know about flood insurance. First and foremost is the property that you're interested in. Is it required to have flood insurance? Well, that depends. It depends on what zone it's in. That is the first place we go to look to see if flood insurance is required. So there are a couple of different zones. There's X, there's a couple that start with A, and then there's some that start with V, V like Victor. So in the X zones, your lender will not require you to have flood insurance because there's very minimal risk for you to potentially get a flood. The next level is that A level. It could be A or AE. If you're in one of those zones, your lender will require you to have flood insurance. And if you're in a V or VE, you're definitely going to have to pay flood insurance. And in my real estate world, we kind of joke around and say, if you're buying a property that's in a VE zone, then that means very expensive. So I would probably tend to stay away from the VE zones unless it really doesn't bother you. Maybe you're multimillionaire and it doesn't really matter if it floods or not. You'll tear it down, rebuild it, what have you. So those are the different zones. That's the first thing you would look at to see if the property you're interested in needs flood insurance. So no matter which zone you're in, there's another item that helps you to determine if you need flood insurance. It's called an elevation certificate. An elevation certificate will tell you what the base flood elevation is for that area that you're buying, and then what is the lowest level of living space in your home. So for example, most base flood, the base flood elevation is around 11 or 12 around here. So when you have to get somebody else to get an elevation certificate to do it for you, a survey guy, something like that. And they'll determine where the lowest level of living is. If your lowest level of living is at a 5, 6, or 7, 8, you need flood insurance. And you're probably in an A or AE or a VE zone, something like that. So you're going to need flood insurance. When you're over that 11, then it's less likely that you'll need flood insurance. But you can certainly get flood insurance no matter where the property is. It's just a matter of whether or not your lender is going to require you to have flood insurance. And if you're paying cash, it's totally up to you what you want to do. So what are some of the things you might want to need to know about getting insurance? Well, it's based upon a couple of things. First is that zone and your base, your lowest living level, the number of floors that you have in your home, the occupancy, whether you're going to occupy it full-time year-round, 6 months out of the year, or you're renting it out, whatever the case might be. The year built will also determine part of your flood premium, and also if you're frame construction or block construction. So those are all the different things that kind of play into a factor as to how much your flood insurance would be if you decide to get some. So I noticed I mentioned Pinellas County and there was a lot of beaches. So obviously all the beaches are on the west side of our county. And so we have the beaches, then the land comes up a little bit, and then into the middle of Pinellas County, it kind of dips down and goes back up. So it's kind of odd for some people who don't live here or know that, that when they go into the middle of the county, into St. Pete or Pinellas Park, they're like, what? Why do I have to have flood insurance? I'm not even close to the water. And then other people that live in Seminole, or you're looking to buy in Seminole, you might say, oh, I'm going to need flood insurance. I'm too close to the water. No, there's actually a small portion of Seminole that actually requires flood insurance. Seminole is one of the higher areas because it comes from the water and it comes up. There's the ridge, and then it goes down and then up again just a little bit on the other side. So you can't really know 100% until you look into the public records to find out about flood insurance. Now, if you're in one of those areas that dips down a little bit, like Pinellas Park in St. Pete, usually flood insurance isn't as expensive as it could be if you're in closer to the water or VE zone or right on the waterfront. And let me say this too, not all waterfront properties are in a VE zone. You can be in an AE zone on a waterfront property. And I've actually even sold a home that was on the water that did not require flood insurance, and it wasn't built up. But once you came out the back door, the yard went downward towards the seawall. So their base was up high enough to where they didn't require flood insurance. In properties that are stilt homes or built up off the ground, if sometimes you might still need to get flood insurance on those, you may not be required when it's that high up. So just food for thought there. Okay, so we have the National Flood Insurance Premium. That's the government backed, that's Citizens. That's what you fall back on if you have to get flood insurance, and none of the private sector will write insurance for whatever reason on the property that you're interested in. You would go to the National Flood Insurance, the NFIP, National Flood Insurance Policies. And let's see, so the difference between NFIP and the private insurance will insure you up to $2 million. If you're in the NFIP, the government-backed insurance premiums, they're only going to insure you up to $250,000. NFIP also has a 30-day wait, and the private has a 15-day wait. NFIP requires you to have an elevation certificate. In the private, it's optional if you want to get an elevation certificate or not. Okay, so let's talk some numbers. So how much does flood insurance really cost in Florida and where I live? So I live in Seminole, if you couldn't tell already, because I talk about it a lot, so sorry about that. And I am on the water, and I am in an AE zone, and I pay just a little over $2,000 a year for flood insurance. The average flood insurance over a lot of different areas is right around $1,000, but it could be as low as $300 and $400, just depending on where you're at. The range in Zone A is about $1,000 up to almost $6,000 if you're in an A zone. VE zones on average are going to run at the bottom $1,300 and could go up to over $11,000 a year. So I just sold a couple of properties in Madeira Beach. One was on wide open water, great water view, the intercoastal boats going by, everything. And that property, he was paying about $7,000 a year in flood insurance. The other one I sold, they're paying $2,400 a year on the water, a canal, not as open. Both of them were in Madeira Beach. Both of them were priced in the low 700s, and both were about 5.5 feet over base flood elevation. I hope that gives you some idea of what the cost might be. Both of those were in AE zone as well. And now the thing is, I think Florida gets a really bad rap for flood insurance premiums, that we're the ones that are always making claims and causing all of the increases. Not so much. So from 2014 to 2019, one of those years, Florida did have the highest amount of claims. Okay. One of those years, Louisiana had the highest claim. And 4 of those years, Texas had the highest claims. So in 2019, Texas had over 12,000 claims. 2018, Florida had just over 5,000 claims. 2017, this number blows me away, Texas had over 91,000 claims. It's crazy high. 2016, Louisiana had almost 36,000 claims. 2015, we're back to Texas with over 12,000 claims. And in 2014, Texas had just over 1,100 claims. So 2014 was a great year for flood insurance, and we didn't have that many claims. Now the thing is it happens all over the country because natural disasters happen everywhere. If you've been around for a while, if you listen to the news, I mean, we've had floods in Missouri, we've had Ohio, Texas, obviously, so they can be anywhere. And about 90% of all natural disasters include some type of flooding. So flood insurance really is one of those ones that, in my personal opinion, everybody should have it. And really, it should be kind of like a requirement all across the whole country, just like it is if you're getting a mortgage, you have to have homeowners insurance. So what if everybody in the country who has a mortgage, and then optional if they don't, has to pay some type of flood insurance? Maybe everybody, well, not everybody across the board, you'd have to have some kind of tiers, but some of the areas that don't ever get flood pay a lower premium. Maybe they only pay $100 a year, something like that. And then when you get into the areas that are like a VE zone, very expensive, then yeah, they've got to pay more. What if everybody paid $25 a year into the national premiums, the NFIP? What if we funded it that way and then everybody's covered? I don't know, just crazy talk, I guess, crazy talk. Okay, so what else do I want to tell you? So flood insurance, we talked about the different zones. Now there's also something called evacuation zones. Evacuation zones, A, B, C, D, and I think E. And when it's time that you have to be evacuated, if we're having a hurricane, then evacuation zone A is the first to be evacuated. Zone B is the second, and so on. So if you're in a VE zone and evacuation A, you know, you got to leave when it comes to hurricane time. Okay, so just some thoughts there. Now, I've been in Pinellas County, oh boy, I don't even want to say, let's see, probably 40 years here in Pinellas County. And really, yeah, I've lived through some hurricanes. Of course I have. I've lived here. What are they like? Well, if I admit it, in my 20s, it was cool. Hurricane, we're off work. Let's have a hurricane party. So that's kind of what I did in the early 20s. So I own houses now. So yeah, it's different. My husband is very protective and conservative. So when we get idea or wind that there might be a hurricane coming, we board up our, we have everything to board up the windows. Everybody knows you have to get water, and stock up on some things. Generators are great to have those because a lot of times people will lose power just depending on where you're at. The great thing is if you can find a house that is close to one of the shelters, buildings that they use for shelters, then you're less likely to lose power because they never want the shelters to lose power. So like my sister-in-law lives near a couple of schools, an elementary, a middle, and a high school. And she's on that same electricity grid. So she very, very rarely ever loses electricity during hurricanes. And you know what? I also would like to say here in Pinellas County, I think we're one of the best spots in Florida to live close to the water and not be as exposed to hurricanes as some of the other areas. Why do I say that? It's because we haven't gotten hit, and knock on wood, don't want to happen now, like a Cat 5, Cat 4. We get them up there, Cat 2, Cat 3. We get tropical storms, winds, high winds. Yes, we get all of that. But it's not that bad. I'd rather live through a couple of those that you know when it's coming and you can prepare, rather than California when an earthquake just decides to hit whenever it wants to hit, or up in the north where you're going to get snow and you're going to get blizzards probably every year and you're going to have to drive through it for months, etc. I'm happy to deal with a possible hurricane from time to time. And where I live, it makes it easier because, again, like I said, we don't get really extreme hurricane cases here, thank goodness. I think the last one that was really hard hit was back in 65, I want to say, 1965. And we've had some, and I don't know if you remember, I think it was like 04, 05, 04, that there were like 3 or 4 hurricanes that happened in one summer. And those hurricanes started from the south of Florida, the very south end, and worked its way through Fort Myers area and then into the middle of the state to Orlando and then out to the other side. Where we live, we did not get hit by really any of those. Did we board up and prepare? Obviously, yes, we did. But there were so many people that lived in the Fort Myers area that when the hurricane was coming, they decided to evacuate and they went to Orlando, which is a destination spot, and decided to hang out there for a couple of days. And unfortunately, then the hurricane came right up there and followed them. So it happens. It happens. Okay, I think there was something else I wanted to tell you about flood insurance. Oh, hurricane deductibles. So when you get a flood policy, one of the things on there will be your hurricane deductible, which is usually 2%. And then there's a wind, but that's, I think, a wind policy, which is included. Ways to lower your flood premiums, obviously, is don't be in the zone. But if you are having shutters for every single opening of the house, every window, every door, garage door, if you have covers for all of those shutters, then that'll help reduce your flood insurance. Some people have electric shutters and they can just hit a button and the shutters come right down. And I do have a friend that one year they did that because they had the electric shutters, and then they were allowed to come back in, because they didn't have to evacuate anymore. They could come back to their home, and they went to turn on open up their shutters, and they had no electricity, so they couldn't open up their shutters. That was a bummer. The other thing you can do to reduce your insurance is look at the deductible. You can have a $5,000 deductible. You can have a $2,500 deductible. I'm not sure, but you might even be able to get away with a $1,000 deductible. But on average, most people have a $2,500 deductible. So that helps that changes your premium. Okay, an elevation certificate most of the time will help you. However, though, sometimes it will not help you. And then in that case, you decide whether you turn in the certificate to your insurance company or not. Sometimes they might just require it, and you don't have a choice. All right, friends. Well, that's about all I got on flood insurance today. A lot of fun stuff with flood. I did live through a claim I had to do in 2016. Actually, it was Hurricane Irma, but and I think it was only a Cat 2. But where I live, it really, really felt like there was a tornado that came through and only hit our house. because both of our neighbors, everybody up and down the street, everybody was fine. But for us, we got hit, and it took my flat roof on the back of my house and flipped it up that way. And so I had water in my house and had to make a claim. Got a great insurance company. So if you're looking for a great insurance company, reach out to me. I can help put you in touch with the same people that helped me out. We did get claimed, we did get covered, and all was good. And, you know, new roof, and we're good. All right, guys. So if you need me, you know how to reach me. Click a button, you know, subscribe, that kind of thing. All right, have a great day.